Hi, Lynn. Tommy Givens here, professor of the course. Since it's week one and we're just getting started, I wanted to send along a video reply to your work in week one, work which is fantastic, by the way. Well done. But this gives me a chance to say hello a little more directly and welcome to the course and kind of get our conversation started off on some good footing, I hope. So as I say, I think you've got some really good insights in both of your responses. Two highlights I wanted to make in what you've written about who Israel is in light of the biblical testimony that I encouraged you to read, as well as Matthew's gospel specifically. And you started off, I thought, so promisingly by saying that Israel is God's elect. And then you unpacked that by saying that Israel's life is not a matter of their merit, but of God's sovereignty, God's grace. And I think that's such a great intuition about what God's election is about in the Bible, in Matthew specifically. Um, in the Christian tradition, especially among Protestants, it's often been a concept that kind of leaves Christians and others feeling insecure about whether they belong to the chosen or that sort of thing, or where they're going to go when they die. But that's really quite alien to what election is about. As you've said so succinctly, election is primarily about uh, God's grace, God's commitment of God's self to people, whether they are faithful or not, obedient or not. You go on to say that God's promises to Israel are irrevocable. So I think that's such a great just intuition that you've indicated about what election is about. It's about God's undying love. And we're going to see this come through very clearly in Jesus in Matthew's gospel. And so, anyway, that was one thing I wanted to highlight in your first response. I think I had said I wanted to highlight a second one as well in that first response. And maybe it was what I was thinking about. Oh, I know what it was now. I think you've really hit the nail on the head that what threatens Israel's integrity is a certain kind of assimilation to Gentile peoples, Gentile ways. And whenever we hear in the Bible warnings against intermarriage or that sort of thing, that's the abiding concern. It's not a concern with some kind of genetic purity. And that is an important insight in our time because we often think that um, there's some kind of animus in the Bible about genetic purity, some kind of biological determinism. And I don't think that that's there either as something that the Bible has to teach against or as something that it promotes. Um, so, good insight that I think you just offered about who Israel is in light of the biblical testimony. And what I've said here at the end or highlighted from your response in this first response form that is a segue to what I wanted to highlight in the second one is how God's election, you might say, plays out in this kind of checkered lineage of Jesus that Matthew gives us. You highlighted, I think, from Hauerwas that it shows this person who is God with us to be the friend of sinners. The genealogy is not an attempt to provide some romantic history of Jesus or something. Jesus has come to embrace all of his people's past in its difficulties, its curses, its blessings, its promises, and holding all of that together, I think, is important. The one thing that I would want to question that Keener says, at least the bit of Keener that you've um, quoted or referred to, he talks about it being unusual for a genealogy to include um, Gentile women. And I think that that's not true to the Bible, actually. We often kind of jump to the conclusion, for understandable reasons, that this is something really wonderful that Jesus brings to the history of his people or the revelation of God, a kind of openness to Gentiles. But in fact, the first part of Jesus's genealogy in Matthew is taken right from First Chronicles as the genealogy of David, which already includes foreign Gentile women among David's mothers. So the importance there is that this is not so much a new thing or a corrective to biblical testimony or Israel's memory or past. It is instead a kind of underscoring of something that's already present in Israel's past. Israel's life has always drawn uh, from the Gentiles among whom it lives. As you pointed out, a lot of times this is problematic because it means a certain kind of assimilation and unfaithfulness to Israel's God in pursuit of the prosperity or security that are associated with other peoples and their gods. But sometimes it is a matter of blessing. And Exodus doesn't hide that Moses was schooled in the house of Pharaoh or relied on the counsel of Jethro, his father-in-law, who was a priest of Midian, of another people, and not necessarily of Israel's God. And so we just have lots of examples of a a relationship not of hostility, but of promise, of mutual blessing between Israel and Gentiles in their past, even as that relationship is obviously wounded as well by all kinds of hostility and difficulty and temptation. Uh, so that's just something I think that we could nuance a little bit in what Keener says, and to recognize that Jesus is sort of building upon and filling out what God has done in his people's past, as opposed to what we often jump to do, which is to regard Jesus as a kind of corrective to something ethnocentric about Israel's past or legalistic or things like that. And a lot of those tropes, I think, don't actually work very well, even though they're common in Christian speech and imagination. Anyway, as I say, great work in week one, and delighted to have this course with you. I think you are beaming in from Scotland, if I remember right from your intro. And so I wanted to let you know I will keep your time zone in mind when starting next week, I offer optional live Zoom conversations, which would replace some of the online work. And I'll try to offer times and days that might work for you. If the ones that I offer in week two, if none of those is good for you, please write me an email or whatever, text me, whatever is convenient, and let me know that those times don't work for you, and maybe some times that would work for you, because I will try to schedule some options in weeks following that will work for you so you can join those Zoom uh, discussions if you want to. Again, great to have you in the course. Looking forward to more conversation with you.